This week, Erik, Senior Product Officer at Escape, to talk about, we welcome him to talk about OpenWRT for Enterprise and Labs. Then, Rob Gurzeev, CEO and co-founder of Scicognito, joins us for a technical segment all about protecting the attack surface. In the security news, Microsoft patches 6 0 days under active attack. The U.S. seizes $2.3 million that was paid by Colonial Pipeline for the ransomware attack. The largest password compilation of all time leaked online with 8.4 billion entries. I didn't know you could spell password that many different ways. How to pwn a satellite. One Fastly customer triggered internet meltdown. And I got 99 problems, but my knack ain't one. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. When it comes to web app and API security, the choice is simple. You can choose Fastly's security solution that teams will actually use in full blocking mode, just like 90% of their customers. Or you can stick with costly options that you probably just turn off. You can get Fastly's all-in-one platform that protects apps everywhere they live, however they're built. Or departments can agree to disagree. You can go to securityweekly.com/Fastly to learn more. Or you can just wish you had.
And welcome to the show. But first, let me introduce you to a man whose eyes are up here, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Welcome, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 698, recorded on June 10th, 2021, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left, Mr. Larry Pesce.
Howdy. I think I'm going to do the same thing. Ooh.
Got to crack the beers.
Got it. Narragansett.
Yeah, exactly, right. When we drink Narragansett, which is brewed right here in Rhode Island, we got to say beers. Beers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lobsters and beers.
Lobsters and beers.
There's a lobster on my beer.
And if we were a little further north, you couldn't park your car in Harvard Yard.
That's right.
Because you'd get fucking arrested. That's how this show is going to go, my friend.
Oh, boy. On the lines remotely, Mr. Tyler Robinson is here with us. Tyler, welcome.
I like when you guys talk dirty Eastern to me.
That is dirty Eastern. Dirty Eastern talk. Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Jeff, welcome.
Happy to be here, Paul. Wish I was there.
Wish you were too.
Soon.
I had a crypto-related story in there in the news. I can't wait to talk about it with you.
Oh,
it so happened it overlapped with where I'm at in my book, so it's gonna be fun.
I can hardly wait.
Right, Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Lee, welcome.
Good to be here from a little ways away. You know, I asked the neighbor's dog what was 2 minus 2. She said nothing.
Wow. And in addition to the Paul's Security Weekly crew, Adrian's just on a mission to be on every single... Have you appeared on every single show on the network yet? Mr. Adrian Sanabria is here with us.
Hey. No, not Security Weekly News yet. I think that's the only one I haven't been on. I've been on application, security and compliance, business security.
Got to get by Doug to get on SWN. It's hard. It's tough. It's very close. He guards that show with his life. So, and then you can go around the world and you get a badge or something.
And I actually learned to talk a little bit north of you. So. In Norwood, just outside of Boston, New Hampshire. So the accent has been known to return if I'm around those folks too often.
Or drinking a lot is usually.
Or drinking, or both.
It's weird. It's weird how you reverse your native tongue.
Beers and lobsters.
Alrighty, if you want to stay in the loop, all things Security Weekly, visit securityweekly.com/subscribe. You can subscribe via your favorite podcast catcher, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for our mailing list, join our Discord server, and follow us on our newest live streaming platform, Twitch. Also, join us on June 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern to learn how web application firewalls can help mitigate exposure in a complex threat landscape. That one's sponsored by Neustar. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to register now. If you missed any of the previously recorded webcasts or technical trainings, they're available on our website for your viewing pleasure at securityweekly.com/on-demand. Gene Erik is the Senior Product Officer at Escape Inc. Gene is a longtime hacker community member and enjoys contributing to the community. Today, he joins us to discuss OpenWRT for Enterprise and Labs. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Gene, welcome to the show.
Oh, you beat me to the line. Dag nabbit, that was going to be mine.
Oh, sorry. I take it back. Okay, you say it now.
Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller. Great to be here on the show.
Sir, can you turn your radio down?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, Gene, it is nice to have you on the show. We thank you for your contributions to supporting Security Weekly, always being present. Most of the time being present in our Discord server. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. I've been listening to you guys for a very, very long time since Twitchy days.
I was gonna say, do you remember Twitchy? We were just talking.
Yes, I absolutely do.
How can you forget Twitchy?
Ooh, popcorn.
Yeah, and all of those great teasers and cut sounds and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember John Strand telling me, like, I think he was in studio live when Twitchy was there once, and Strand turns to me, he's like, dude, Twitchy is insane, but he's really smart. I'm like, yeah, that's accurate assessment.
Accurate. Yep.
Yeah. I have fond memories of a long time ago. Ben Jackson was on the show, and you all still had an IRC channel, and I was enjoying throwing jokes at him and watching everybody just kind of cackle while they're trying to do the podcast, because you couldn't talk about that stuff back then.
Also, Ben Jackson, Black Ratchet, also not black. Like, come on! What is Black Dragon was someone from the history of the show as well, and he wasn't black either. I was disappointed. I'm like, you had that mental picture of someone in your mind, and then they look completely different.
Yep. Yeah, that happens.
Well, at least Dr. Doug is white, so
that's true. That's true. Dr. Doug White is white, so.
More pink, but whatever.
Yeah. If we all had names that described us, I'm not sure it would be the best thing.
Yeah, let's not go there because we want to get to OpenWRT. One of our favorite. I haven't messed with OpenWRT in some time. So, Gene, I want to turn it over to you. Oh, actually, Gene, before we get started, I do want to ask you, since it's your first time on the show, how did you get your start in information security?
So I got my start in information security pretty early. I was dinking around with computers probably since I was 4 or so. My school had a like one color Apple II, which was really like amazing at the time because that wasn't a thing that existed anywhere. My dad had a Commodore 64, so I was playing with that all the time. But the weirdness really started when I got a Game Genie for my NES and found out that you could just start changing memory locations, and that's what this thing did. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I went off to the races from there. And I didn't really think anything of it until I got booted off the internet for the first time with an out of bounds memory error by somebody while I was on IRC. And I thought, I really need to learn how to do that. That's really cool. So
yeah, it's interesting how getting hacked is kind of a lot of people's story of like, hey, I got to know how that works. I want to get into this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I don't know if it's as mysterious these days as it was back then, but it was like, how do you even do that to somebody? How do you make their computer stop working across the internet? Like, that's insane. And then from there, like, I fell into like all of the IT buckets that you could possibly think of. I've worked in tech support. I've worked in IT. I've worked in operations and security. And I did a lot of work in software QA before I finally convinced people that I actually knew how to do the security part of it, which is really weird, but they didn't.
No, that's actually not weird. I think that's a great kind of segue into security.
Well, the thing is, like, they just flat out didn't believe me until I started showing them, like, okay, look, I'm doing these piddly little software bugs, but if you want me to write an exploit for your software, I can do that too. I just didn't think you were ready.
Nice.
So I gave a boss an exploit, and they're like, "What?"
I mean,
I shelled your database. So
yeah, I mean, exploits are really just part of QA. So
that is my opinion. Like, if you have a really good software QA engineer, that's just a part of what they do. So
agreed.
I mean, that's kind of how I fell into the bucket, and then I kind of continued to do more crazy crap since then. So there you go.
I haven't messed with OpenWRT in quite some time. And I know at the time, in 2007, that's a really long time ago now, when Larry and I were writing the book, actually before we started writing the book, we were like, okay, what firmware project is really good? And we did some research, and we concluded that OpenWRT is great. And I used to get really mad when people used to say Tomato, because at the time, Tomato was just a fork of like Linksys's open source software, which Larry and I had already reverse engineered, and we're like, that's total crap, man. Like, it's terrible. And we came on OpenWRT. And it's good to see that it's still alive and growing today.
Yeah. I may have done something similar with a comparable company's router when I was working in support there, and stolen their web interface to make an emulator. They both loved and hated that.
Interesting. Making emulators is not easy either.
Yeah,
especially on those
it is when you can just steal the PHP source.
Yeah, I guess suppose if you have the source.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's really easy because you just do edit, view. Remember that? Sorry.
Someday we're gonna have to find a clip of that.
Yep. Oh.
With regards to the OpenWRT stuff, though, like, you guys were part of the inspiration that got me started on that. Like, I didn't know about it until I heard about it on your show and started digging into it, and got the book, got myself a Linksys device, and saw another talk later that year from somebody at TourCon. And it's kind of been a fun ride since then.
Very nice.
So tell us more about OpenWRT today, Gene.
All right. So one of the things that I find curious is that people don't really talk about OpenWRT that much anymore, which is crazy to me because it is now pretty rock solid. Like, it's a good platform. It can be easy to use if you just use their pre-built packages and stuff, and there are commercial devices that use it. And people just don't talk about really playing with it anymore. But it's based on Linux, so it's got huge amount of horsepower, and you can kind of do whatever you want to do with it. The thing that I still take away from it is it gives you the opportunity to get enterprise features out of something that, while it is capable physically of providing those features, was kind of never meant to. So, your home gateway isn't a Cisco product. I mean, it is a Cisco product, but it's not a Cisco enterprise product, right? So you're not expecting it to have BGP and failovers and all of that stuff, multiple WAN links, VLAN trunking, that kind of stuff. But, if you throw OpenWRT on your Linksys, now you have access to all those features. You can do them all. And once you have a couple other little pieces that aren't super expensive these days, you can start doing some really cool things with your home network. I actually use that on my home network. I've been using the same device running OpenWRT for 3-4 years now, and I haven't had one single issue with it. It's just rock solid.
Well, what hardware are you running at home?
I'm running a WRT 1900 ACS. I actually went to look it up today, and I was checking on back then what I had paid for it on Amazon, and to my surprise, the price on the thing has not changed.
Oh, geez. And it's 3 years old.
Yeah, and it's still just as valuable of a platform as it has ever been. So, like, that should say something.
Yep. I'm just amazed at the amount of hardware support that OpenWRT has now. I've been working on the SANS IoT hacking class, and we're getting close to our deadline. But as part of some of the labs and stuff we were looking at, we wanted a device that we could customize, and a hardware device and a router. And I went through all of the supported devices that were like readily available, were inexpensive, and would run OpenWRT. And there were like 3,000 devices that were listed in that thing, and there's probably more. And I had to strip that down, and I found one, and it was relatively cheap, and it was something that I didn't expect would have run OpenWRT, which was a number of the MikroTik routers.
Wait, MikroTik runs?
Some of them can run OpenWRT, yeah.
Microtic routers can run on.
Does it run on x86 hardware as well as the ARM?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah, you can do x86 OpenWRT.
You can use it as your desktop, Tyler.
You could.
I mean, you could. I don't know if you want to. But
If you really wanted to, yeah, you probably could.
I wonder if like you can run an x86, but like if it had copious amounts of CPU and RAM, if it actually had the reverse effect, right? Because it's usually tuned and compiled for smaller devices, right?
Well, you may be concerned about that, but I have some experience to the contrary. Here at Escape, we actually make some devices that are x86 based OpenWRT devices. And here's one of them right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So they work really great and do some really cool stuff. And if you guys are interested, I'd tell you all about it.
What kind of advanced features? Like you said, enterprise kind of grade stuff. I'm trying to compare this with something, say, like the Ubiquity platform or the MikroTik. Those are two of the primary edge use cases I see for like small to medium business or hacker computers.
Netgate.
Yeah.
PFSense, Netgate, right?
Yeah,
Sonic
Sense
Wall.
is another great one.
If you want to talk about stuff that people don't use as much, Sonic Wall's still in the running. So yeah, the enterprise feature stuff. So you could do all kinds of things. If you want to use it as a real router instead of like a NAT device, you can do that. It does BGP. So you can set up your ASNs and actually route to other devices. You can set it up to do failovers, multipath WAN for wireless stuff because of the power of a couple of different options for actually supplying wireless, like host APD. You get enterprise level features from 802.1x, like if you want to use EAP-TLS as your identifier instead of a password, you can do that. So you can do completely passwordless Wi-Fi with OpenWRT, and that's doing certificate-based Wi-Fi with a home gateway. I'd like to see that through the normal firmware. I don't think you can. So there's those VLAN trunking. I use LACP in my network, so I have two network connections that are used in tandem for aggregation and for failover. There's all kinds of wild stuff that you can do with it. If you,
does that trunking use like a non-proprietary protocol, something that works with?
Yeah.
Okay, like the Netgears, because I know I've had some issues with.
So I have mine trunked down to a Cisco switch.
Okay.
So they are negotiated, and like I said, it's VLAN trunked to the Cisco switch, and it's using LACP link aggregation to use multiple network adapters to that switch, so I don't lose connectivity, even if I unplug one of them. It's seamless.
But doesn't it need an ARP protocol so that the two different IP addresses can ARP for the same IP address? Now I can't remember which, because there's the Cisco proprietary one. There's more of an open one that's on PFSense that I'm using now. I forget what they're called now, though.
Yeah. So the LACP is the open source one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is it? HSRP, right? Yeah. Is the Cisco one. And then there's the open one, and I can't remember. There's a similar acronym.
Yeah,
it's been so long since I've done it on Cisco equipment, I actually don't remember.
Hot standby router protocol, right? It's HSRP.
Hot.
That's a little different from link aggregation, though.
Right. So you're link aggregating so that you get 2 gig instead of 1 gig in throughput?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So I've got two Ethernet ports that look like one to the rest of the network. But if I pull one link, all that happens is I get, maybe I lose a packet or two.
Yeah.
And the speed drops from 2 gigabits to 1 gigabit.
Gotcha.
So I'm big on redundancy.
Have you done where you have two OpenWRT routers?
Yes.
And they're ARPing for this. That's how I had the PSense configured here.
So you can give a virtual IP address to two different devices so that they've each got their own IP, and you give them a virtual IP, and that HSRP that you're talking about, high availability stuff, is in case one of those routers falls over.
Right.
The other one can usurp that virtual IP address.
Then you need to do it on the WAN side too. You did mention there was a WAN.
Yeah.
protocol.
So there are a couple different ways to do it with WAN. There's MWAN 3 that you can use to do link protection, so your WAN doesn't go out. There are other protocols that you can use that take a little more work, and we actually use one of those other ideas for WAN link on the device that I just showed you guys. That's our VeriHall device, and it actually has two cellular modems in it. And we shotgun those two cellular modems together, and if you were to lose one link or the other, it doesn't matter. And in the meantime, you get to use the speed of both mobile devices.
How does it do the aggregation of both of them? Is that configurable? Like, I know you can give a weight to one or the other, and in pfSense I can do it by firewall policy. So
we actually use a multipath protocol that essentially kind of works like a VPN tunnel to an AWS endpoint. And that's how we can make it so that your IP address doesn't look like it's changing if one of those links goes down. So you can have a video call over this device and lose one of those cellular connections, and you'd never know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Nice. It's almost like some software-defined perimeter type stuff.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool solution. It's an open source solution, but we tested the ever-loving heck out of it and made it work on this specific device, so that you guys can have, if you were to buy one, you get it as an appliance, and we manage all the hard stuff for you. So,
yeah, the other way to do that is with routing protocols, but I felt like that was messy.
It is really messy, and you end up with a lot more loss, especially when you're talking about real-time protocols like video conferencing or phone calls and whatnot. It gets really messy.
Yeah, because I was looking at OSPF, BGP, and those type protocols to do basically do it in layer 3. But I was like, I don't know that I want to maintain a whole routing protocol, because that's hard to troubleshoot too if something goes wrong. I thought I was just being a wuss, but you're making me feel better, Gene. Thanks.
I mean, still a wuss, but
I still am a wuss, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is like, I don't know if you did this back in the old school days when we had dial-up modems and stuff, but we used to shotgun dial-up modems together.
Yeah, US Robotics had one with 3-in-1 in one unit, and you could hook it up to 3 phone lines, and it would automatically do that failover for you, or bind them all together, and you could use the combination of all that bandwidth.
Wasn't that called muxing? Something mux? They binded them all together, right?
Something's tickling at the back of the brain.
Yeah.
It's
a long
That's
time
half
ago.
of it. I forget the other.
Yeah,
half.
it's definitely a long time ago.
I'll have to go to 56k.net. Hold on.
Right.
Unfortunately, it turns out even if you can do that, if you have a crappy phone connection, say it's running over, say, I don't know, a microwave, it still won't work. I don't know why
Gene,
that
I
is.
think it'd be kind of interesting to have you chat through some of the stuff we were talking on Discord with some of the work from home aspects that we have going on, and just our general hacker ability to tinker. What's some of the configuration things you think a typical home network could get set up with that's not horrible to maintain, but still has a nice balance of security using something like OpenWRT?
Well, one of the things you could take advantage of, a lot of people use Wi-Fi devices for everything. I myself happen to enjoy wired things, but I get that I'm the weirdo these days. So, you're working from home, you've got your work laptop. You can take advantage of some of the not too hard to set up things that like host APD could give you on OpenWRT device to just say, if you see this MAC address, use 802.1x to put it on its own VLAN. And then you don't have to worry about whatever else is going on your wider network to isolate it. It's just automatically going to go on that separate VLAN.
That's kind of cool, actually.
Yes. I've used that in the past to do enforcement of things like leak-free VPN access. So when you don't want to force the client to get their laptop correct, you can kind of force the network to do it for you. So they don't have an opportunity to leak any data.
Paul, I think you were thinking of virtual circuit multiplexing or
VSR.
VCMUX.
What is it? Oh,
yeah, I think you're right. I think that was what it is.
Which is, it sounds like it was used for DSL, for ATM and DSL stuff.
Interesting.
Thanks, Adrian.
So do you think from that standpoint, things like VLANs is something we should expect or start to push into the consumer networks, or always quarantined segmented guests? Like, what kind of things can we start to think about just as from a security side? And this is more of a brainstorm, not expecting you to have all the answers, but this is one of the questions we're continuously asked is, how are our home networks kind of configured? What could we do to configure a home network without having to be ultra guru and still have some segmentation, some level of security? We've got a lot of laptops, kids, iPads, all kinds of ridiculous games, and wife's computers that ends up with Pinterest recipes that are god awful, full of malware. How do you kind of keep these things segmented and secure and build something that you can still maintain on a day-to-day?
Sure. So I do think that VLAN is a thing that we should kind of take advantage of, and it can be done even for if one of the big companies wanted to put it in production level. It can be done fairly easily with point and click in a web UI to just say, hey, if you see this thing, put it over there. But I still want to be able to get the internet. Another good example would be, so with most OpenWRT installs by default, UPnP doesn't exist. It's not a service that's installed.
Hooray!
However, if you do any kind of gaming, then that's going to mess with your gaming.
Yep,
So
Nintendo
I
Switch.
actually have UPnP installed. However, I only have one device that's authorized to use it.
That's convenient.
Yes. So my Xbox is the only thing that can do UPnP. So it looks like it's a raw device out there on the internet. As far as it's concerned, I get all green lights, no latency, nothing.
That's awesome.
But anything else that tries to use it doesn't work.
Doesn't a lot of IoT devices rely on UPnP to at least get the setup right?
Some do. A lot of the ones that don't go out to the internet still take advantage of like broadcast domain stuff. So they expect to be able to broadcast to everybody and say, hey, where's my TV for a remote or what have you. And yeah, if you have things set up in a more secure way, you might have some trouble with that, but they're not insurmountable problems.
Usually it just means eroding the security of your network so IoT devices actually function.
You can, but one of the things with OpenWRT is you have the ability to selectively do that, just like you would an enterprise network. You've got something that needs to be in the DMZ, you put that one thing in the DMZ. You've got one thing that needs to talk to the database, you put that one thing in a VLAN that can talk to the database. So you just have to take the same concept and apply it to your home devices. So you got an IoT device that needs to go out to some sketchy domain and you don't want anything else to go to that sketchy domain. Well, you say that one device is able to do that.
So you're mapping SSIDs to VLANs.
Actually, I'm not mapping SSIDs to VLANs. The entirety of, I shouldn't say that. I have multiple SSIDs. So I have virtual access points with my OpenWRT setup, but I have certain rules within host APD where even if it's on the same SSID, if it sees that MAC address, it'll shovel it into a different VLAN.
Oh, interesting.
So
It's actually cleaner than the Ubiquiti way of mapping VLANs out all over the place.
yeah, it can be. And you can take advantage of PVLANs if you do that. And like if you've only got one device that needs to be in that VLAN, then you can PVLAN it, and it's just over there somewhere. It's still got network access, but it can't see you and you can't see it. And that's all it needs, right?
Yeah, usually
What's
in
PVLAN?
a private VLAN, because usually it's the initial setup that I find when you're setting up a new IoT device. It needs to hit the broadcast domain, it needs to go find stuff, needs to find my phone and things like that. I suppose you could put your phone and this device on the same VLAN during setup and then take your phone off of it. You got to play games. I mean, that doesn't necessarily translate to being easier for the user, but I think for us, that's certainly an option, because a lot of IoT devices, like once the initial setup is done, it really just needs to talk out to the internet and doesn't need to talk to anything else. And that most of the time, some of the time, depends on what it is, right?
Yeah, because you're not talking directly to it. You're talking to whatever it's talking to.
Yeah, when I fire up the app,
you're both
for,
going out to the internet. So.
Right, my sprinkler system, right? I'm talking up to the cloud, not the device on my network.
Exactly.
One of the things I wanted to actually play with, but don't have the hardware to play with it, is to see the whole Amazon Sidewalk thing. If I could keep someone else's device from being on my network, even if it wanted to be. That was an interesting thing I wanted to try, but I don't have the gear.
I turn that off.
Or more importantly, put them on your network, but on a network VLAN that does some traffic manipulation, like a
upside down internet.
Upside down internet. I was going to go right there.
Yeah, I love my neighbors from Josh Wright.
Yep. Yeah, Josh.
Yes,
said that.
I was
Now the ring is always upside down.
Yep.
Yeah, those are fun. So I had a question on things I have, conversations I have lately is, I get a neighbor they started with a single access point and they realize the house is big and they get a repeater and it sucks. And I'm thinking, would their life be better with OpenWRT? Would that be easier for them and give them a smoother experience without jumping into an enterprise type device or even mesh or something?
I mean, it depends. So with OpenWRT, your options are a lot more, open. So you can do things like jump around different frequencies. You can you can actually put the thing in a monitor mode for some of the devices where it can give you a site survey all by itself and tell you what's going on. So when it comes to making a wider network, there are some software projects to make OpenWRT cooler with the whole concept of mesh, but they're not really what you'd call ready to go. So for me in my home network, I have in addition to the wireless that's built into my OpenWRT device, I have 3 Cisco AeroNet access points that hook up to my Cisco stuff, and I actually got all that stuff really cheap. I got 3 access points and a switch for $200. So
nice.
And does AC, and then the actual controller, because they're lightweight access points, the controller is just a VM.
That's how Joff does his network. I really think that many of us, Lee, as you mentioned, have fielded questions from our friends and family that are like, I'm having trouble with Wi-Fi. It's slow, and I'm told I need a repeater. Like, who's telling them to get these repeaters and stuff? Because I think we might all agree that a properly designed wireless network won't need a repeater. Like, if you've got good quality access points and you're able to place them, I mean, you have to go crazy running cables, but I think if you place them where you can easily run a cable, they're probably going to be fine.
I don't know. I can't think of anybody's excuse. I've got a 16,000 square foot church, and at one point I was running one Ubiquiti long range access point, and that covered that and went 2 blocks to my parents' house.
Yeah, I can go up
nice antenna.
Right, I can go up in my attic, and I'm just lucky it's a straight shot into the basement where the internet comes in. So I run one cable up in the attic, and I dropped an access point down at the top of the stairwell. And like that one AP probably could cover most of my house.
And those repeaters just seem to cause more problems than they fix.
Yep.
You know, like they're designed for the average person to go to Best Buy and buy, but every time somebody does, you know, we tend to get those calls. Like I did what the instructions said with the repeater, and it's not working.
Well, because I think the backhaul and serving clients is done on the same radio. Is that right, Gene? Is that most of the design in a lot of these commodity devices?
Yeah, they're trying to do a mesh, but they don't do it very well. So they have two links that are basically on the same radio,
right?
Which means they're stepping on each other. So you don't get a lot of the benefit unless you have one that lets you run a wire, and then maybe you can get some good benefits out of that. But nobody, like home users, don't really want to do that.
No. Can you build an OpenWRT that does mesh that has two Wi-Fi adapters in it, even if like one's on board and one's USB?
You absolutely can. And I have in the past done that. The interesting thing with that is getting the mesh set up. Sometimes you have to be very selective about which wireless devices you use, because not all of them support the mesh features.
Right. When we say mesh, that's a separate 802.11 protocol. Correct.
Yes, that is. But yeah, as long as you get the hardware right, you can still get some help through OpenWRT, which is one of the cool things. Like they have the whole package management system for installing stuff, and a lot of times even enterprise features end up having a GUI section where you can, you don't have to get on the shell to configure everything.
Convenient. So convenient.
What? So you mentioned virtual access points. How does that? I assume that doesn't like step on other access points. How does that work?
So virtual access points is kind of like, let me give you a good example. I have in my home network, and I was going to comment on this on the solves where maybe OpenWRT could help with your friend's home network problem. I have a really old house. I have 100-year-old house, so there's like cement and wood and stuff in all the walls, which makes Wi-Fi all kinds of hooey. So one of the things I'm able to do with that is I have one network that only works on 2.4 gigahertz and one that only works on 5 gigahertz. So I can kind of manipulate stuff a little bit. And then I have multiple SSIDs, and those SSIDs have different authentication associated with them. So virtual access point is more like an overloaded term, I feel, that enterprises use to try to describe this, because it's not. It's most of the time it's just another SSID.
It sounds more like a virtual SSID, right? It's just that front end.
Yeah. In my mind, a real virtual access point would be able to take advantage of the entirety of the 802.11 spectrum at the same time, so you could be on multiple channels. But that's not really a thing single radios are good at. So,
but still, can you tie that to some of those VLANs that we were talking about also? Like if you wanted to use SSIDs to control like where people are going without actually having to set up multiple radios and multiple channels?
Absolutely. I actually do that in my network at home. So I have multiple security cameras, and the last one that I bought, I decided to make a little bit of a research project. So I bought a crappy Chinese camera. And I'm like, I don't really want this on my wider network, but it really wants Wi-Fi really bad. Let me see if I can kind of put it in its own little corner over here. So it has its own SSID and its own authentication, so it can't actually go to the rest of my network.
What did you call
I love that use
What did you call the SSID? What would you call
Danger zone?
Danger zone.
Danger zone.
Safely running shady stuff on your
So
network.
you did put it right into the danger zone.
I absolutely did, but it's on its own VLAN, and it's like firewalled and monitored all the heck. So if it was trying to do something weird, which it's tried to do some weird things, it basically doesn't get to do it. Can't call home. It can't connect to the global website thing that you're supposed to use to configure their cameras or to view their streams. I view it with on-VIF stuff.
Nice. What else can you do with OpenWRT these days?
So I have had multiple different VPNs set up on my network. I started out with Strong Swan, doing IKE v2 IPsec. And I've recently, when I had to redo the PKI infrastructure for that, I actually replaced it with OpenVPN because I wanted to play with that a little bit. And I got to tell you, it works great. I've got the profile on my cell phone, so I can pull up that VPN to my home router from anywhere I am and view my cameras that are in my house. Even though they can't reach the internet, they can reach my VPN.
That's smart.
You can do other things, DNS black holing. So if you don't want to watch ads and stuff when you're on your media devices, that's a thing that you can do. Some media devices don't like it when you turn off commercials.
I noticed.
So yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff. And if someone is looking to get started to build their own lab, you don't have to go through the barrier of entry of building your own from scratch anymore. You can get a production device that actually runs OpenWRT fairly cheaply from GLINet, and just start learning from there. And it's got the GUI installed, and it's got an even simpler GUI if you aren't ready for that yet. So I actually have a couple of those.
The
They have
GLI stuff.
OpenWRT GLI nets that are factory flashed.
Oh yeah.
That's all the GLINet is based on OpenWRT.
Yep. Every one of their devices is OpenWRT under the hood.
And they are not shy about it. They do say that right on the website, big bold letters.
Yep.
Nice.
Interesting.
I have purchased and broken my share of GLINet devices. Yes.
Those mini bricks.
Yep.
They're not quite
Broken
bricks.
or broken in?
They're like rocks.
Yes.
Not bricks.
Adrian, yes. Yes.
The last one I bought, I actually set up as a transparent VPN link to a Fortinet gateway. So I actually had to build an O package for Open FortiClient.
That sounds painful.
It's not. Actually, I automated it, and the CI/CD pipeline for that is on my GitLab.
Nice.
So I don't have to do anything. I just click update software, and it goes and builds itself.
Do they support a VMware or virtual appliance or virtual image kind of out of the gate? I mean, obviously you can install it and build it through VMware, but do they have pre-built ones that you could utilize for home labs?
I don't recall if they have that per se. I feel like they do have stuff and tell you how to load it up on KVM, but I've never tried.
Yeah, that seems like a good use case. That's one of the use cases for pfSense that I leverage a lot of is the virtual environment and just building out quick automated labs for, like you said, things like VPNs, VLANs, breaking VLANs. Those things are kind of hard to emulate with a commercial or enterprise level piece of hardware in a virtual environment that you're trying to test in. So seems like a good use case for these guys.
Yep. I mean, there's the stuff that you can do with an OpenWRT device. It's kind of endless when it comes to dinking around with the network. I mean, if you wanted to, you can do some packet inspection and TLS unwrapping and all kinds of weird stuff.
So what kind of other cool things are you up to right now, or your company? Like you mentioned, you guys have some interesting products. It'd be kind of cool to hear about some of those.
We have a couple of different OpenWRT based products. This is the VeriHall device that I was talking about that has multiple cell phone modems in it. So that's basically designed to give you a really good mobile network access when maybe you wouldn't be able to get decent mobile network access. And that thing's pretty cool. We also have a couple of other products that are based on that. We have NetMax, which is made for like failure conditions. So we talked about the multipath WAN. That's one of the things it does. You hook it up to Wi-Fi, you plug in your Ethernet WAN connection, you hook it up with a mobile modem, and now you've got a connection that's not going to drop. So if you lose one, it just fails over to the other one in real time. So.
Nice. Gene, how has the OpenWRT developers and community been recently?
It's been pretty good. So if you go and look at the documentation these days, they've done an awful lot of work. I'd say they did a lot of work cleaning stuff up, but when they had a split years ago where a bunch of developers buggered off and made their own project based on OpenWRT called LEDE.
Yep.
And there was this huge schism in the community for a while, but like they ended up working that out and coming back together under the OpenWRT name. And since then, like I've only seen things improving. The forums are better, the wikis are better and more informative about how to do cool stuff and what you should look at in selecting devices, how to build ODE packages and where to find information on cross-compiling stuff like. I have compiled kernel modules for my devices at home because I do some weird stuff.
God bless you. Cross compiling is such a pain in the ass.
And kernel modules.
Yes, it is.
Is the GUI still in Lua?
Yeah.
You don't seem too thrilled about that, Gene.
Yeah.
But I mean, you need something small and lightweight to be on all these devices, right? So I get that decision from that vantage point, right?
Yeah, so the interface that you're talking about is Lucy, and it's good for what it does. It does a really good job of controlling the backend API for these, which is the UCI system for OpenWRT, which controls like all of the networking and software that you could possibly want to do on these things. It does a good job at that, but when stuff is written in Lua, it's kind of hard to find people to contribute.
Yeah,
to it.
it's not the most popular.
And I get it now. Lucy is LUCI. It's Lua UCI.
UCI.
God
Right.
damn
And
it.
is there still a drink recipe in all the new releases?
No, they've dropped that.
Oh.
Yeah, when they merged back to LEDE back into OpenWRT, they dropped that stuff.
Oh.
What's the fun in that?
I know,
Kamikaze, White Russian.
They're trying to put on their big boy pants and
I get it.
Be grown-ups.
That's no fun.
Yeah, I know. I don't like big boy pants either.
Right? Or being a responsible adult.
Yeah.
It's for the birds.
Just pants
in general.
Yeah.
Tyler and I think great minds think alike, my friend.
I mean, I don't think Paul's wearing pants right now.
Probably
to
not.
see the top of them.
He's not. He's not. Nope. Neither am I.
That
Are
desk isn't just holding up laptops.
There was a lot of
Swing.
a lot of devices that support, like air quotes, support OpenWRT, but like it wasn't for the faint of heart, and like you really shouldn't try. Like, has the community done a good job of like steering people away? Like, yeah, you could get OpenWRT running on this, but it like probably should use something else.
Yeah, I mean, they try to. And the supported devices list that Larry was mentioning that had 3,000 some odd things, like it does a fair job of saying what works and what doesn't, and whether or not it's a healthy build. And then they have the automated build system for all of these. So, when it comes time to do an update, from 19 to 1901 or whatever version release they're on, their automated system just goes for everything. So you can pull down those images, and it's usually as simple as flashing through your, D-Link's web interface or your Linksys's web interface, like you just would do a normal firmware update. So.
Yep, that stuff is amazing now.
And still a lot of binary drivers out there for the Wi-Fi chipsets.
Yeah, they're trying not to as much as they can, but a lot of times they'll give you an option and say, look, we have the binary for this and we have an open source version. The feature sets aren't parallel, but use the one that works best for your use case. If you're really gung-ho about everything being open source, or you need a specific feature that you can't get through the binary driver, use the open source version. But a lot of times you're going to get like stuff that is Qualcomm based SOCs, which is the chip that drives the router underneath the hood and makes the Wi-Fi go and all that happy stuff. You're going to have a really hard time getting support for those Qualcomm Atheros wireless devices without the binary driver, because they make it really, really hard.
I never understood the full strategy behind making it a binary blob versus just making it open source. Wouldn't that mean that more people would buy your hardware?
You'd think.
I think the thinking of those companies that make the SOCs is that they control what the chip is allowed to do, and they're able to add and remove features as they wish, and basically, keep people from messing with it too much, as opposed to.
So it's their legal department. I like it though. Yeah. It's your theory is the legal department told them so.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe you think about also the Apple ecosystem. They control the hardware, they control the software, and it should be incredibly stable.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. I never agreed with it.
That is the idea.
Yeah. I always wanted it to be more open.
Yep.
But then again, you can melt your Wi-Fi, your SOC, basically.
You absolutely can.
I mean, you probably still can, even with a binary blob, too, right? I mean, to a certain extent. Well, there's probably stuff in the binary blobs that prevents melting.
You would hope so, but to a certain degree, no, not really.
He said degree.
So, Gene, a question for you: Have you seen this little hardware here? It's small, right? This is the WRT node, the WRT node. Have you seen these?
I haven't had an opportunity to play with those little guys.
So I picked this up from DF Robot. So in the development for the IoT class that we're working on, we're looking for like a router that had a web interface and all the stuff that we could customize like OpenWRT, and we needed something relatively small and the ability for us to get relatively inexpensively. So
order 1,000 from China.
Yep, exactly. Turns out these took quite a while to get in. I don't know what their supply chain looks like, but it's an open source, effectively development board that supports OpenWRT. And it was like $12, I think. Somewhere between $6 and $12. We could look it up.
That's pretty cool.
And the default board has got, it looks like 2 Wi-Fi antennas and USB, and a bunch of pins on the back. And then they sell a like a breakout board that you plug this thing into, and it's got more USB, and it's got 4 USB ports on it and Ethernet, and it's got a bunch of stuff broken out on a header for SPI, UART. Looks like some other stuff in there too, probably JTAG, and a bunch
SPI?
of
Is SPI like JTAG?
Serial Peripheral Interface.
Oh, interesting. That gives you more than just a console. It lets you interface with the hardware.
Yeah, so it's typically hardware to hardware interface.
Yep.
So like if you were going to dump a flash chip, you'd probably dump it over SPI directly to the chip,
right?
As opposed to going through JTAG.
As opposed to because JTAG's a pain in the ass.
Yep. Yes. So I thought that
pain in the ass too, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
less of a pain in the ass than JTAG.
Yeah.
Tyler seems to.
Yeah.
You guys can duke it out after the show.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's like the nerdiest argument ever.
They're both a pain in the ass.
I'm getting blown out of my seat because your propellers are spinning so fast.
Nice. Nice.
That was awesome. Gene, parting thoughts, words, promotion, shameless plugs.
So in addition to like the cool toys that we actually make more cool toys, some of which don't run on OpenWRT but are good for people in the security community. And we also do some managed services, including red team engagements and remote support and stuff like that. So check out Escape. We do a lot of fun, cool things. Our products and services lists are on the website. And I'd say if somebody's looking to get started on building their home network, having an OpenWRT device, whether you buy it with OpenWRT or you make it yourself, is a great way to get started and a great platform to start asking questions from.
Sweet. Gene, are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly? I know you've probably been waiting for this entire interview because you've thought about these answers, haven't you?
Maybe I've thought about them for a few years.
Yeah. So, Gene, 3 words to describe yourself.
Hacker, dad, nutty.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Old serial devices, dot matrix printers, robotic arms.
Nice.
You know.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Hi, I've got a book, and you can too.
What is your favorite hacker movie?
My favorite hacker movie. You guys are gonna hate me, hackers.
No, I love you for that. See, I'm on Team Hackers here.
I love hackers. It came to me at just the right time when I was already feeling inspired to learn about the stuff, and then they made it look really cool, and I was like, oh, I want to be that cool.
They did make it look really cool.
In the popular game of pick 2 celebrities
to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay, that one's a little harder. I've been trying to think about that for a while.
But now you've only got 10 seconds.
Let's see.
And
David
why
Bowie,
is it Ryan
Marilyn
Reynolds
Monroe
and Hugh
could be a
Jackman?
pretty.
David Bowie and Marilyn Monroe.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Gene, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly.
It's great being here, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Gene.
Stay tuned. Coming up next, Rob from Psycognito. Stick around.